Hello everyone, and welcome back to this month's video, where today we're doing another exciting book reflection, book review, however you want to put it. So if you're new to this channel, welcome. For those that might already be subscribers, thank you. You might know that I am in love with a show called RWBY, R-W-B-Y. So you'll see like little posts here and there, whether I'm in cosplay or, you know, making like little silly videos about the show. So it is a wonderful show and I recommend checking it out. So as some of you might know, earlier this year I posted a book review / reflection on RWBY After the Fall. And just in a short couple of months, because it's really hard to put down the book, I went ahead and finished RWBY Before the Dawn. Oops, there goes my bookmark. So this is a book that came out on July 21st, 2020. It's written by E.C. Myers, and the story is by Carrie Shawcross and Miles Luna. So we have this. If you see me looking off to the sides, because I have notes, because we got a lot to talk about. So yes, so the premise of this book is the story follows the After the Fall. We have Team Sun, Neptune, Scarlet, and Sage. They meet up with Team Coffee, so that's Coco, Fox, Velvet, and Yatsu, in Vacchio, so it's one of the kingdoms in RWBY, are trying to find an organization called the Crown, a force that is stealing people with semblances, but they're doing, the two teams are doing this after school hours, like I'm assuming there's like a curfew or something, and they're just going about their way and breaking that to find out what the Crown is and what's going on with people. So we have the headmaster of Shade Academy, which is Professor Theodore, and his assistant, Professor Rumpel. Think of it as like, you know, Professor Ozpin and Glenda Goodwitch. So we have these two professors decide to switch up the teams, and an initiation event takes place. However, that does not stop the other teams, even though they're divided for a short amount of time, to find out more about the Crown. So I will say there will be spoilers from this book, probably after the fall as well. Not only that, from RWBY's volume 7 and 8, if you're not caught up with the full series. So again, spoiler warning. This is a condensed version. It's not like a full review of the book. But please be sure to check out the book and like the other RWBY book as well. It was very well done. Once I started reading, it was really hard to put down. So alrighty, so book overview and what I appreciated. So there was a moment in the beginning where Coco Adele, which we stan our queen on this channel, absolutely love her, she takes off her sunglasses, and it's funny because in a Demon Interview episode, shout out to Demon Interviews, be sure to check out Springy and his channel, you know, apparently when Coco was visiting during the Team Coffee, she actually took off her glasses and everybody was just like, oh no. So it's funny that she did that before like even reading that. So be sure to check out that interview. It was a lot of fun. We have also within that moment, Fox and Coco are talking, and I was actually really grateful to see some dialogue exchange between the two of them and to see like what their friendship is about, because in the show, you know, you get like that quick little moment when they're fighting and whatnot, but I've never really seen the two of them just chatting, even like telepathically, because that's Fox's semblance. Like that was really wholesome to see. I was really glad to see some dialogue between Fox and Coco, and I want to see more. No pressure. So there's also another part where, you know, they're being called to like an assembly, like all the teams and all the students of Shade Academy are being called to an assembly, and I think it was Coco Adele and her team got like called out, and somebody, I think it was Coco, said there's nothing like scarier than being like called out in class compared to like fighting a Grimm. And I feel like that part's true. I think it was Coco that was like thinking along those lines, like, you know, we fought scary Grimm, we fought, you know, the paladin, you know, technology creatures at Beacon Academy during that whole period. But when you get caught out in class, it's just like that fear sets in and it's like, oh no, what's going on? Am I in trouble? So I felt that so much. We have Sun, who's the leader of Team Sun. That's not confusing at all, but it's what we do. There's mention of his cousin's dojo. I hope I said that right. His cousin's dojo. I never really thought that he had family. You know, he went to Menagerie to meet Blake's family in Volume 4 and then comes back to meet up with the teams in Vacchio, but I didn't realize that he had a cousin living in Vacchio, and I was kind of curious to learn more about it, but then the conversation shifted or something, and I was like, maybe at a later date we'll figure out more. So they did mention that Sun likes to monkey around and explore, and you know, a couple of the team members of Team Sun are like questioning like his leadership abilities and whatnot, and it was just like, that's what Sun does. Like pretty much in volumes 1 and 2 he was just like monkey around. Like, you know, I feel like he got really serious during volumes 4 and 5 because he wanted to help Blake with the White Fang and, you know, getting her back with her team, that we kind of saw a little bit more serious side. I mean, there were still some funny moments, you know, like the line about like, you know, your daughter's in trouble, I'm gonna go get her, you know, White Fang's evil and all this stuff. But, you know, we did see like his fighting side, like when he fought Adam at Haven Academy. So I feel like when he came to Vacchio, I feel like he's just letting off some steam, and to do that, he's being Sun and he's gonna monkey around. So that's my theory. So moves to Velvet and Velvet's backstory, and I was actually kind of surprised to see that in this book. I mean, I love Velvet, I appreciate Velvet and everything, but I was just like, So Velvet was raised in Atlas, so the whole Atlas, you know, sorry, I had to start by something. So Velvet, there's a story with her and her father, just like some bonding going on that'll become relevant later on. I think so. Became like relevant later on. But the one thing that stood out to me was the Pumpkin Pete statue. Apparently there is a Pumpkin Pete statue in Atlas, and I was like, why didn't we get a moment of Jean Arc in like volume 7? Definitely not volume 8 because it's too dark, but like in volume 7, like going to the statue. And like I feel like that would be like the perfect RWBY Chibi episode. Like Velvet's talking about like the Pumpkin Pete statue and Jean's just like, what? Or I'm pretty sure he already knows about it, but it would have been funny to see just like Jean just like at the statue like, my hero, Pumpkin Pete. There, and then of course, you know, I feel like RWBY does balance like the wholesome moments from the sad moments, because then it transitions to a sad moment where there's like a wall. So we're back in Vacchio, flashback's over, we're at like a wall and there's like flowers and photos and there's people crying at this wall, and it's kind of like a shrine area. Or, you know, there's like the missing victims, the people that are being kidnapped and stolen, that there's like this dedicated wall to those people. Like there's pictures like, have you seen, like missing and all this stuff. So it was really, really sad to read that part. It was very beautifully well written. So I believe back at the academy, again, this isn't like a full review, there's kind of like a group therapy, and I didn't know much about Nolan. I knew he's a character in RWBY, but you know, I got to see like a little bit of him, and I really appreciated the line saying, when Nolan's like saying like, I'm not gonna waste my life, like I'm gonna stand up and do what's right and fight, and it was just like, yay, go Nolan. So made me love Nolan a bit more. So alrighty, so hey look, we have a chapter 4. So the teams, you have Team Coffee, Team Sun, they're out in the city past curfew in search of the crown. So Fox is still unsure about trusting Sun at this point and how serious he's trying to take the mission. They are still going after the crown, who are taking people with like powerful semblances, like we're talking really, really powerful semblances here. But the teams are trying to figure out why. Like, why are they taking people? What do they need these people for? Where are they taking these people? They have unanswered questions. So the group gets to a building in the Vacchio city, and they find out that Professor Rumple, who helps, who's like the assistant headmaster of Shade Academy, is in there with some people. The teams are confused, but they're like, well, maybe she's investigating, maybe she's on our side, but maybe she's on their side. It just raises more questions and suspicions. There we go. Getting excited. So Coco then decides to confront Professor Rumple in the morning. She's like, all right, let's just sleep on it. We'll figure it out in the morning. Always a good plan. But before then, there was something very interesting. So I've always been perplexed by aura. So you have semblances, which is kind of like a superhero power, and then you have aura. Aura was briefly explained by Piranikos in Volume 1. Not to the extent that I would have liked, but, you know, watching RWBY's Volume 7 and 8, and noticing that when the teams were fighting, or when people were fighting, like, their auras were, like, dropping. And whenever you see somebody's aura go, it kind of, like, glitter effects off of them. Like, you can just see it, like, cracking and breaking. So, but we finally got to read this wonderful story and more aura explanation. Let me tell you why. So, even though I could have gleaned this in RWBY Volume 8, that, you know, aura takes time to recover. You know, auras, you need rest in order to use your aura. Ooh, that was a mouthful. So you have to basically indulge in a little self-care, you know, plenty of sleep, you know, making sure you're taking care of yourself in order to basically recharge your aura. And then you can go out in battle and use your aura to then use your semblance and to fight. So I was always confused by it. I've made many memes and videos just like, can somebody explain to me what this means? And to finally be able to read it on paper and like really process it, I was like, finally, I understand it now. So teams just need a little bit more shut-eye, recharge their aura, and then go out and fight. I like the comparison between Professor Ozpin and Professor Theodore. I feel like Ozpin's like held to like some high standard with the academies. So, but you know, Ozpin like saw potential despite transcripts. So, you know, you have to have a transcript in order to get into an academy. You have to show that you're capable of becoming a huntsman or huntress. And Ozpin would just kind of like glean over the transcripts, be like, yeah, but look at this person, look how well they fight. Like, I believe in them, that they can help better protect the world, even though we all kind of figured out why. Because there's a big force of evil that's not in vacuum at the moment. It's probably heading to Atlas or in Atlas. So again, RWBY Volume 8. Theodore, you have to prove that you're capable of fighting. It's not just like, oh, I see greatness in you. It's like, prove it, fight, like right now, like at this very moment. And he gets very excited over this. So again, it's different places in theology. So Vegan Vale's a little bit more laid back. I mean, they got a forest full of Grimm, but, you know, they're a bit more laid back. Where, you know, out in the desert, it's every man and woman fights for themselves, in a sense. So you have to really demonstrate that you're strong enough to be at Shade Academy. So then the morning comes, and before Coco can confront Professor Rumple, there's an assembly, and the headmasters are saying that there's going to be a reinitiation ceremony for new teams to form. Coco was so stunned, and she tore off her sunglasses, a sure sign that she is mad. The fact that she didn't take off her sunglasses once, but twice in the book, just makes it so much more insightful of like how, like, not dramatic, but just like how different this book was compared to like the series beforehand, where it's a little bit lighthearted, like some heavy moments, but this was just like, oh my gosh, this is for real. So so everyone's confused and stunned and wondering, you know, like, what's going on? Like, is this like really gonna happen? Like, we're gonna form new teams like today? But before these questions are asked or answered, they're all boarding airships to go to the place where the I was gonna say landing strategy, that's what they do, like where the reinitiation ceremony is gonna be. So they get into these airships. It's a commotion and whatnot. Velvet's separated from her team, but she finds herself standing next to Sun on this airship heading out. So they're told the instructions that in the desert there's these golden trinkets. So, you know, we've had chess pieces before. I think in the other book, I think it was like a deck of cards. So now we have gold trinkets, and to come back with a gold trinket. However, like right as the instructions are finishing up, everybody's getting a sense of where they are. On the Airbus, the floor starts to open up from the middle to the sides. Okay, you're in air, and like all of a sudden the floor starts going underneath you, and that's like one of my number one fears. Whenever I travel on an airplane, thankfully I've been safe and hope to continue to be safe, but that's always like one of my fears, like what happens if like the floor just like goes and then we're just falling in the air. It's like, so to read that, I was just like, oh, this is probably the most scariest part I've read so far. So yeah, my worst nightmare. And I thought about this the other day too, was with that scene, no matter how scary it is. So about a year or so ago, when Rooster Teeth like premiered or dropped the like RWBY Volume 9 snippet of like from Ruby's perspective, whenever she's like falling and whatnot, that would like be cool to see Velvet's perspective of like the Airbus, or not Airbus, thinking of something else, the airship, where you know, like you could see like she's like looking at sun and then the floor and you see like students falling and stuff. Like that would be super insane. Really scary, because again, that's like my worst fear, but I don't know, it's just something that played in my mind and I was like, oh yeah, this seems cool. But thankfully Velvet makes it safe on the ground, so this is a chapter in Velvet's perspective. So, and she finds like an old dust quarry. I liked how, I have to read this, hang on. I liked how the comparison of the quarries were like wounds that ran deep in the people of Accio, really showed how much people were hurt when Atlas took a hold of Accio. So there's drama among the kingdoms. Be like keeping up with the remnant kingdoms or something. Like, I'm sure there's videos out there that kind of explain, but basically there was like this great war. You know, Atlas tried to take over Accio because they wanted materials and minerals and dust to be able to fuel everything that was going on in Atlas, because they're, you know, technology city. So, you know, they were digging these quarries. So the fact that, you know, like looking at them and being like, you know, Accio people have a thing against Atlas, and Velvet's from Atlas, as we learned in the backstory, you know, that it was really hard to read that and just be like, oh, like poor people of Accio, like, you know, they had to take that on and stuff. So it was really something. Will the kingdoms reconcile? I don't know. I have to wait and see. But it'd be interesting to see, like, if all four kingdoms came together again, what would happen? Alrighty, so back to the present moment. That was a little history lesson, even though it wasn't that good. But again, you're invested in the show and you know your RWBY history. Yeah. But let's see. So Velvet meets up with Octavia, who's formerly Team Indigo. So the two of them talk about how they're going to get out of the dust quarry, so they're kind of stuck in there. Oh, it's neighbors outside. They talk about Octavia's past, they talk about blind worms, they find a trinket, and eventually find the airship to get out. So they have their little things. So, so before the new teams are formed, there's a flashback moment of Team Sun talking to Professor Theodore and Professor Rumpel when they first came to Shade Academy. And then from there, that's when the new teams are formed. So you have Team, I don't know if I'm going to say these right, so don't come at me in the comments. I believe it's Team Rosie, so that's Renee, Olive, Scarlet, and Coco. Nova, which is Nubuela, Octavia, Velvet, and Arslan. I think it's Brian. I don't know if it's Brian or Bryn or something. Bolin, Yatsu, Ray, and Neptune. Fondue, Fox, Nolan, and Umber. And Team C, Sage, Sun, Electra, and Ardian. I'm sure I butchered those. Should have done a little research. So those teams are formed. So, and that was very confusing, and I was very, very confused. I thought about doing a little guide, but thankfully RWBY Wiki already has like pages of these teams and like who's in the team and whatnot. So definitely needed RWBY Wiki during this time. And the other thing I didn't like, it's not like I didn't like the new teams, I just didn't like seeing Team Coffee split up. I was just like, no, my babies, how dare you? Like, Team Coffee is like so good, but that was the whole reason as to why. It's like, you know, Professor Rumple is just like, oh, Team Coffee is like so popular, but you're not at Beacon anymore. It's like you're in Vacchio, so you have to do this. And then that's why the teams got separated. So it was so hard to read that. Again, as we said before, the headmaster, Theodore, he likes to see a little bit of action for you to prove yourself. So Velvet has to fight Nebula without weapons. So Velvet is without her camera. Coco tries to step in. Professor Rumple then says they're not a Beacon anymore, that they are in Vacchio, a dangerous and unfair place where people need to look out for themselves regardless of their status. That's heavy. To be able to hear that, be like, you know, you were once like, not popular, but you know, one of the coolest students ever, like everybody looked up to you, and now it's just like, you know, nobody's equal, nobody's ahead of you, you know, you have to fight and battle for yourself. It's like, yeah. I wonder how the other teams are gonna manage to fit in, especially now that they have their huntsman licenses. I think they still do. Like, is that going to create like a power shift? So many questions. Welcome to the RWBY fandom. We'll have to wait and see. That's the best answer. Alrighty. So after that whole fight, and points are proven and whatnot, Sun and Velvet talk about a poster about a place that is called the Mirage, where it is like a fighting arena, but most important, the words "the crown" are on the poster. So they go ahead and leave together to go figure this out. So by this point, we're about halfway through the book, and things are just starting to get interesting and pick up. So, and not only that, Carmine from After the Fall makes an appearance, and you know, there's like a fight or something. Coco tries to fight her, but Carmen is much stronger and manages to escape. So that reunion was very, very short-lived. So at this point, Velvet's been gone for a long time, and even though they're not on her team anymore, Fox and Yatsu are a little bit worried about her well-being, which is so sweet. That's why you can't split up Team Coffee. They care about one another so much. So they decide to storm into Neptune's room. So, and then again, it's like a whole flashback scene. So we get a little bit about Neptune's backstory now. And about his semblance, as you all know, Neptune is afraid of water, will not go near water. Yeah, he's scared. But Yatsu and Fox, I can't believe they did this, hold Neptune over like a water fountain or something like with water, and Neptune finally confesses about where Sun and Velvet went. Leaving, Fox and Yatsu see Professor Rumple carrying a wheel of gold on her back, and they have to fight her while figuring out her real name. They put fight her while fighting out her first real name. It's supposed to be figuring out her first real name. So they're trying to figure out what her name is. So this alludes to the fairy tale of Rumpelstiltskin. So we have Professor Rumple. She has the gold wheel on her back. She can change things into gold whenever she touches something. So now you have to do the thing where you have to figure out Rumpelstiltskin's real name. So Fox cheats and uses Ada. It's like an accessibility dialogue assistant. There we go. I did write it down. Yay. So he uses Ada, and he's just like, you know, come up with names that are related to the color gold. And I kind of do that too with story writing. Like sometimes, like just the other day, we were like, all right, like what's some names related to the word time or something, and then coming up with names like that. So I figured it was cheating, but together they finally figure out her first real name and her semblance that she's able to turn things into gold. Read the book to figure out what her real name is. Sometime later, the group finds Sun and Velvet, and they're under some sort of mind control. Yatsu shakes Velvet from the state, yet Sun wears a crown of gold, meaning he is king of the fighting arena, and Yatsu has to fight him. In the process, Yatsu is taken away. So this is where all the drama starts. And it's so good. Once you start reading, it's like really hard to put down, but it's like, no, I need to slow down and process this. Like, what is going on? And they kind of do keep it a little bit suspenseful, but we're going to start figuring out why people went missing. So the group finally finds missing people, noticing and realizing that they need an army. So So there's like this fighting arena. Sun and Velvet were there. Sun has the crown. He's like the king of the arena. So Yatsu has to go fight him essentially to try to get him to come back to Shade Academy, but then in the process Yatsu's taken away because Yatsu has a very powerful semblance. He's able to mind wipe people and make them forget their memories for up to a couple minutes, a couple hours, a couple days, a couple years. Yeah, it's like, no, how dare you. Here enters Jax and Jillian. So we have two new characters. So Jax's semblance is mind control, and Jillian is aura siphon to drain others' auras and store it into something bigger. So not like Jean's, because when I read that I was like, well, Jean amplifies aura, but Jillian can take it away and just kind of like store it. I forget what they stored it in, but she's able to store that, and then Jax can kind of mind control people. So what's their purpose? Their purpose is to become the rightful heirs to Vacuum. And by doing so, they need to attack the city to restore their positions as rulers. They believe, so this is Jax and Jillian, they believe that they are descendants of the former rulers of Vacuum and want to restore their positions. The teams meet with Finn, who tells them the stories about Jax and Jillian. So Jax and Jillian originates from Jack and Jill. You know, Jack... oh gosh, I used to say this nursery rhyme all the time with the babies. Like, Jack and Jill went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown. And Jill came tumbling over. So, more on that here in a second, but yes. So the teams meet with Finn, who is also an After the Fall, who tells them that, you know, there's like stories and stuff. So with RWBY, there's stories about stories, there's folklore and all this stuff. So, you know, most of the characters come from fairy tales and stories and whatnot, so, but make them a little bit more grim. So yes, so here's what I noticed during that whole part was stories can either inspire to become better. So like Ruby Rose, if you all remember in volume 1, chapter 2 or chapter 3, where, you know, Ruby tells Blake, like, you know, I want to be a huntress, just like what I read in the stories. So, you know, it can kind of give that insight and like that kind of hope. But not only that, you have people who hear stories and it could be more personal. It can be to gain power and to gain, you know, like the rightful heir to the throne type of thing. But it hurts people along the way. It's putting others in danger. So when I thought about that, I was like, dang, that's deep. Okie dokie. So again, we're just starting to wrap up the book, and it's just action-packed. Like, this would be really cool to see animated. Yatsu wakes up in front of Jax, who is trying to use mind control on him to gain a semblance, which is like the mind wiping. Jax used to be a huntsman at Shade Academy, but due to his arrogant and defiant ways, he left with his twin sister, Jillian, to form an army to claim his rightful place as ruler in Vacuum. And now seems to be the perfect time with the CC towers down because of the whole what happened with the fall of Beacon. CC towers are down, there's no communications. The other kingdoms are closed off. We know for a fact Atlas is closed off. The other teams had to sneak in there. You know, Team RWBY and Team Junior and Oscar and Crow. And Haven might also be like a little bit closed off due to everything that happened. So yeah, now it seems the perfect time for an all-city attack. So, and there's no one to protect Vacuum. They don't have a protector of Mantle like they do in Atlas. So they go into fight. So, you know, they're going, Jax and his army are going up to Shade Academy to attack. We're back at Shade Academy, which Velvet sees a picture of a girl in a checkered dress on Professor Theodore's desk. The book never specifies like who the girl is on Professor Theodore's desk, but to me I think she alludes to Dorothy, just like Dorothy wore the checkered dress, you know, all that stuff. So teams are then restored to former. So yes, after all that, there's like an announcement, you know, hey, like your teams are back to normal. So, you know, so it's like Team Sun again, Team Coffee, Team Indigo, so ready to rock and roll. Now with the teams formally restored, Fox and Coco go around Shade Academy, and they're trying to get the students together to be like, all right, like we need to get ready to fight. We need to defend the academy. The army arrives, and Coco goes to fight Yatsu. However, Yatsu's not completely under Jax's mind control. I don't know how he's doing this, but he's able to not be completely under the mind control. But Coco and Yatsu still like fight, kind of like how they used to train, with like some hits here and there, while quietly talking to one another of a plan to defeat Jax. Yatsu swings Coco over to Jax, and she opens fires on Jax. And guess who's back? Carmine, yay! With her follows all the antics that she does, and she blows up a mine. Of course she does. And in doing so, entraps Velvet and Octavia in the hole. Sun goes to investigate with some others, and they manage to find and free Velvet. That was very dramatic to read. I was just like, no, not Velvet. Like, anyone but Velvet. Like, no. But they're able to free Velvet, so shoo. And then Grimm swoop in, so you have the creatures of Grimm flying around, you got people fighting one another, you got people under mind control, you got Carmine being crazy, there's just chaos. So, it happens. Gil and Coco are fighting. Umber, who is part of the crown, fights Fox. Things going on. Velvet, who's now freed, decides to make a message. So, kind of like a broadcast, similar to what Jean did in Atlas towards the end of RWBY Volume 8. And fortunately, hers was a little bit longer than Jean's, so she was able to get more than just 2 sentences out. Yatsu is able to join Shade Academy's side and comes up with a plan to mind wipe Jax. So Yatsu's back in the game. He's just like, all right, like, let's take out Jax because he's got too much power. A little bit of aura to Yatsu, but gives the remaining to her brother because she loves him and she doesn't want to make him angry or anything like that, but she's kind of like done. she's tired. I think they all are tired. So, and that she says that she was never under his mind control. So, and then with that, Yatsu is able to stop Jax, and Jax is just not like brain dead, but he's just kind of there but not there. So, and with that, the fighting pretty much comes to an end. So, and with that, Velvet comes over to hug Yatsu, kind of congratulate him and whatnot, but he tells her no, that he's scared to touch her because, you know, with this touch, he's able to use a semblance. So that was a little bit sad to read. I'm not I think it's like a Cinnabon cross shipper. I think that's their name. I'm more Crosshairs, but, you know, it was just, it was a little sad to read that. Like, she just wanted to give him a hug, and it was like, no, don't come near me. Don't come near me. So, and he's a big guy too. So to hear that, like, oof. And the thing about that too is, I feel like I had to go back and like reread it really slowly again because it's such a short part with like all the fighting and what Yatsu was doing. I gotta make sure you read the book, but I did have to pause a couple times and be like, all right, like, this is what's going on. And it's a lot of information in such a short part, so. Alrighty, but with the fighting done, you know, Jax is put away properly and all this stuff. The teams are back to how they once were. Sun visits the dojo and his cousin. They notice some of the Vacuo people are more friendly, and that he, and I'm assuming the others, will try to make Shade Academy their home. So it was a nice little wrap up there. So that pretty much concludes book review part. Again, I didn't cover the whole book because I don't want to take up too much time. So, but I just wanted to highlight like the parts that I enjoyed, or, you know, parts I would love to see animated, even though the airship would be scary, but I think it'd be nice. So overall thoughts with the book. I liked how balanced the teams were. Of at least 8 people, because there's 4 members per team, so you have 8 people with the 2 teams. But not only that, you have like other students, you have professors, bad guys, but they all balanced really well. So, and I know it's not like a big struggle, but when there's so many characters, it's sometimes really hard to like pinpoint like whose turn is it to speak, like whose turn is it to talk. So I thought that was really well done. People being buried by rocks and rubble just seems to be a common theme in this book. You know, Velvet and Activia, when they went to go get the golden trinket, they were down in a hole and had to like get out, and then Velvet, you know, was caught in the blast that Carmine set off. Why, Carmen, why? Why you do that? So, you know, it seemed to be a common theme. There was lots of grim attacks. I mean, that's what they do, grim attack, especially when there's despair and no hope and just anger and, you know, all this stuff. But it's definitely a lot of grim attacks. And that's pretty much it. I just thought really well balanced. I love getting to know the other team people. I still want to know about Sage. I don't know what Sage's semblance is. It's not really discussed. The others are discussed, but yeah, I thought very, very well done. I like to see like where in the timeline, in the RWBY timeline, this fits in. I mean, it's obviously after the fall of Beacon, once they get back and stuff, but you know, just like where the other team is, and then piece that together. So, but yes, that pretty much wraps up RWBY Before the Dawn, and that leads me to the next book, which I forgot to bring in here, which is Roman Holiday. So I did purchase, I think I'm about 5 chapters in, and it's very good. Not disappointed whatsoever. So, but I had to like stop myself because I'm like, I don't want to get like confused, like Roman's not in this one, so we all know what happened to him. But yes, so hopefully next couple months or so I'll finish reading Roman Holiday, make another book. But until then, do let me know, have you read RWBY Before the Dawn? Are you in the RWBY fandom? It's a good fandom to be in. It's such a good show. And you know, hopefully at least like some parts I would like to see animated, but I definitely liked seeing the team members coming together and working together. A little sad to see them being all separated, but you know, I think that kind of helped them grow and be a little bit stronger and not so like dependent on one another. They're able to kick butt together, but nicely. So yes, alrighty, and that wraps up my video of the month, so yay! Alrighty, but do let me know what y'all think. You know, leave a kind comment, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more. I try to post once a month or so. And until then, drink your water, take your meds, wear a mask if you need to, have to. If not, stay at home if you're not feeling too good. Make sure we're taking care of ourselves and taking care of others. So that also leads me to make sure you're kind to others and kind to yourself. Bye.